JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Tuesday, April 22nd, 3:15 on this fine afternoon. Talk quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P is up about 2.33%, still off the highs of the day, off the lows of the day as well. Just a far cry from yesterday. Yesterday at this, markets were bouncing a little bit when I was on audio yesterday afternoon, but we were still down like 2.5% on the S&P. So pretty remarkable. And if you look, not much in the way of catalysts. I mean, nothing's really changed from yesterday to today. You just had uh, Bessett's been all over the news. He had comments around the noon hour where he said that he sees a de-escalation with China in regards to the tariff situation. He says the situation's unsustainable. So you saw a big spike right at the noon hour. SPY was at 524, all the way up to 527 and 529. And then at 1 o'clock, the press secretary gets on and she kind of spins things a little different. And then reports came out that Bessett was saying that he sees uh, the U.S. and China trade situation being like a slog or whatever, being difficult, taking a while, and almost like right now the situation is like a trade embargo, which means nothing goes through ports on either side. So that kind of pressured things, but we found some support here. 522 on the SPY, we're right here, 525. The VIX was down right at that 30 handle for a little bit. It bounced a little bit. Uh, yeah, and I mean, take a look at some other things that I would look at. I mean, gold, which has been on a monster tear on global, U.S. concerns as well as global economy concerns, that's off nearly 1% today. And in the context of gold, typically 1% would be a large down day, but considering where it's come from, it's like a drip in a pan. But who knows if that changes. Also, I mean, take a look at Bitcoin, up only almost 5% here today. And then other things to note, and it's funny, one of the, there's some Fed speak this week ahead of the Fed meeting. I believe it's 2 weeks from tomorrow. Uh, and well, I forget who it was that just came out saying that, yes, the US dollar weakening and yields rising may mean that foreign entities are starting to pull their investments from the US. It's like, oh my gosh, what planet have you been on? But it makes for good commentary and, great narrative. And who knows if we continue. I mean, at the heat of if you were looking FinTwit at about 1 o'clock yesterday, you would think everybody was loaded to the gills on puts and thinking the market was going to completely roll over. Uh, I got those Reddit calls, and then as we start to roll, I got those SQQQ calls, the spec calls, just as a hedge, right? Because to me, who know, the uncertainty part of everything that's going on is the big the big unknown, right? The uncertainty, what's going to happen, and that goes with the market as well. I 481 on the SPY. You would think the longer this goes on, it's like more of an uncertainty, but it's a tough environment to if you're just sitting on one side of the fence and not open to bounces, you get killed, right? Because folks probably loaded the boat on puts, no calls. And then you watch overnight, you think we're gonna gap down, we're gonna have a horrible day again today, and it does the complete opposite. um, yeah, so unless you have great timing, it's good to be on open on both sides. So I've been saying this for a while. I think there's opportunities for calls and puts until things kind of resolve, and I hope we get into an environment where you can start to look a little further out on a lot of names as opposed to being selective. Maybe that starts to happen soon. I mean, the press secretary saying they have 78 deals with 180 countries. I don't know. They just throw out numbers. Um, the thing is, I posted that little chart this morning. Here it is. I think it's, again, I don't know. I'm not here to post this. This isn't factual data. I mean, this is just a chart that was at one of these folks who were posting stuff yesterday or the day before. It looks I would think that's somewhat accurate. I mean, it's not like you're trading milk for eggs with your neighbor, right? You're doing these crazy deals that impact both countries' economies, livelihoods of people. So these trade deals usually they don't take overnight. But now there's talks, right? They're going to have, like penny stocks. They're going to have memorandums of understandings with countries, and then they'll hash out the fine details. Well, I mean, I say it sarcastically because it's like that's what we've come to. But like that might be something that's needed for the market to really find some footing. We're going to need a couple of those with some big, removing a lot of the potential harm for countries like the huge with China. It's got to be something to happen soon. Otherwise, yeah. All right. So I've been saying that. Not going to continue to reiterate that, but I always try to look at some of the positive signs. Again, you look at the VIX down nearly. Well, we'll see where it is right at this exact second, but right at that 30 handle, came back down. Uh, Yeah, and you know the other thing is we have the press secretary on at 1 o'clock, and we start reverse, and we're down to 522 on the SPY, and it's like you can't rule out the possibility that we revisit the 519 open, and then we just melt for the rest of the day, right? I mean that's the kind of trading environment. That's why it makes it difficult. You know, even right now we got 39 minutes to the close, so you know I'm not sitting here putting my bullhorns on, loading the boat on calls. I'm hoping we rally, get some continuation tomorrow, and some of the positions I locked a lot of the calls in already. I hope they keeps going so I can cash out more tomorrow, right? I mean, that'd be phenomenal. But you can't rule out that that's not going to be the case. All right, so that's kind of the overall market. Tomorrow we get the PMI flashed out. I don't know if that comes out at 10 o'clock. I'm still trying to find the exact timing, but that'll be kind of like the first hard data. I almost think, I mean, it's going to be great to have it, but I think it's going to be stronger than expectations. So probably not going to add much in the way of color, but maybe I'm wrong. After the close today, we get Tesla. Thursday, we get Google. After the close, Intel. Tesla, I posted the implied moves, but the implied move right now, as of like 10 minutes ago, was 11.7% implied move, $27 or so. And then the last 8 reports, I posted those, and the average move over the last 8 reports have been 11.25. So if you're looking for to try and game the system here, and you think that maybe the options are implying not so great a move, this is probably not the best. It looks like it's priced properly. If you think there's gonna be a flat move, there's a great opportunity to sell premium, right? So uh yeah, so that's that. That's you know my thoughts on Tesla. And I said it this morning. I mean, I think it's like it's peak disappointment, right? There's peak pessimism around the name. So it's gonna be an awful number. It's like I think the easy thing to do is to go and get puts for Armageddon, right? But it's like again, the market's a forward pricing mechanism. It's you know, a lot of back in the day when I used to be argue with the bears on Tesla on FinTwit, because this is back when who knows that Tesla was actually going to be successful. They always used to talk about competition. It used to be the Ferrari. Oh my gosh, the Cayenne, the EV Cayenne is going to destroy Tesla. And these are the same FUD people who've been bearish to market for years and who are still on FinTwit. I still post a negative on Tesla, although they've been wrong to thousands of percent. But needless to say, now it's Rivian and Japan EVs aren't in the US, but all these other vehicles that are just killing Tesla, and it's like we've heard this story again. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not a concern, but you know, and then you start looking at the future, and you know, I always used to say people compare it to GM, Ford, and they're like, oh, it's a car manufacturer. No, it has so much. And I used to be big about the solar part of it, right? I mean, the big mission at some point would be trying to take these homes off the grid. You got the power, uh, you know, their side, which I used to love Solar City. I don't want to go on a whole tangent here, but I'm not going to sit here and get calls. I remember back in October when they had the earnings, I'm like, oh, just nibble some calls, peak negativity, and those calls were, I think it was the 300 strikes were up like a 10 or 15,000% by the end of the week. All right. Rants for other days. Let me just take a peek at the 300s just in case, just because I mean I haven't looked before, but the premiums are expensive. I think when it was peak negativity, it was only like a 6% move. But yeah, take a look at the 300 calls. They're 40 cents. So if you're uber bullish on Tesla, you think there's an opportunity, I mean, those don't look too bad on a risk reward basis. On the flip side here, you look at the puts, and to get the same puts down to 40 cents, you have to go down to 150, 750, so $80. So you're paying a little bit more on premium on the put side, which again, I think is because some people are expecting it. I mean, not expect, it's like it's going to be bad. It's just how bad is it, right? All right. So that's Tesla, that's earnings. Not going to trade any of those. I'm trying to think of some of the other names, but I'm keeping things small. I don't want to be tempted to add some positions. I mean, take a look at this morning. What happened was it Northrop Grumman or Lockheed Martin pulling UNH, United Healthcare earnings down 13%. I didn't even take a look at those puts and calls because sometimes it's best not to look at those. But that was another crazy. That was 700%. To 470 puts up 700%. They were $21. So they were $2. So that to pay that risk for that kind of move and then to only get paid rewarded that much, that's crazy, right? I mean, because that's not going to happen. That's probably the biggest earnings move on Northrop in who knows. They'll have the date at some point. Similar today, right? What is the other name that ran up? Oh, 3M, right? If you went and got the 3M calls, again, here's another name. It's a Dow stock, and to get to play the risk reward on this one, and you get the calls, and you only get paid 100% on the call side. The one, let's see, the 135 calls are 277 by 310, so they were 60 cents yesterday with this stock at 126. It's not the risk reward I would trade on. So that makes me a little more comfortable. The United Healthcare call puts last week, that's a different story where you look at those premiums and say, wow, it's only pricing a 3% move, and then boom. All right, so that's overall mark. Don't want to get a tangent. Bitcoin, the chart. All right, so then just individual names. So First Solar, at this time yesterday, I was talking about First Solar was at 120. Like at some point, the tariffs have to be a catalyst for it. And then sure enough, there was a ruling, and who knows what happens in June, but just crazy tariffs on China imports. At times, the China markets and Southeast Asia markets supplied like 88% of the solar capacity for the US. And now there's a big scale up in the US for manufacturing, First Solar being one of those names. So this, to me, it's like a big deal. And just frustrated I didn't add yesterday. Then I was watching this morning as it was starting to run. The 150s were like 40 cents at the open, or a little after the open. I almost looked at those. But to me, then I'm like, once it breaks that 50-day 137, I figured we're getting to the 140s. So I got the 145s, able to close some out for 100%. And then a little later down, once it started to break up into the low 140s, I went and closed some more out for 400%. I just held a couple. I'll just hold the rest. Again, it has earnings next week, so the premiums are tough to play next week. So I'll just continue to hold because, yeah, I think it's a big deal. And I think the more folks look at First Solar and realize how that some companies, the tariffs are negatively impact, right? You're getting all your materials from your components to build things from abroad. So you're getting hit on the tariffs, getting just to get your parts to make things, right? First Solar is fully integrated from the start to the finish. They make everything in the US. So all right, another rant. So great to have that this morning, and then Reddit. So again, it was right at the midst of the lows yesterday afternoon. I'm like looking at Reddit. I'm like, wow, I think this should be down more than it was. And not only that, you have Google reporting earnings on Thursday. I figured even if it did more, the premiums would hold up. And sure enough, that played true. It wasn't even running too much in the morning, and then it finally caught some fire all the way up to 102 by 1 o'clock, and then it's just chopping around here. The good thing, you take a look, and even when it's chopping around, the premiums have just started to it's like premiums are creeping up, and the 105s, they keep going, right? So it's a good thing. So that means that maybe there's anticipation of maybe some sympathy move with Google, which is good because that'll allow me to close some more out right before earnings, and then maybe there'll be a bigger boost. So crazy. I mean, you look at some of these candles and just take a look at Reddit. It's up 7% today, but you look at the candle and you would think it's only up 2% relative to all the other moves. So I'm not saying it's going to hit there at the 200-day moving average at 115, but I mean, if the market continues tomorrow and then Google has a great report after the close Thursday, I can't rule anything out. So I already locked some more, some of the calls out for over 100% and some more out for a little over 200%. I'll just hold the rest. I don't even know if I'll keep a mental stop. I'll just if we have a gap down tomorrow, it's gonna be back at $95. So I'll just hold the rest into tomorrow. That's Reddit, but another nice one today as well. And then with the news coming out of Bessett's mouth, I guess you would call it, or at least the report from Bloomberg, I went and got RH calls just because if there is any follow through and maybe some more headlines positive with China, RH is going to be back at 190. So the calls were actually near double after I got the strikes. I just held on to them, and I'll continue holding to tomorrow just as uh, a name that has had some nice profits over the last couple of weeks playing for bounces. So I'll continue to do that. That's about it. GPCR is kind of flat here today. I was looking to add some more strikes. I'll be patient. I went and got some more GameStop calls today as it started to run. I mean, let's see here. I didn't even pull up. Hang on 1 second. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I was up in the air. Was I going to get July strikes, the July 55s, the June 50s? So I went and got the Junes, and then at some point I looked to close the May strikes out. I'm surprised it's not up more than Bitcoin, right? If it's going to be some of its growth story, or at least some of its model is now being a Bitcoin reserve, right? Like the strategy, you would think that maybe would trade more in lockstep with Bitcoin. It's not today. So that's a little disappointing, but I think at some point, once they announce that, what the purchase, the price, maybe they announce another offering. I think that's then that's the next leg for the stock, right? It's GameStop. And then just other names I'm watching. Of course, Wayfair. Yeah, I was up in the air between doing Wayfair and Restoration Hardware, but Wayfair, it's it just seems like it's stuck between 26 and 28, and then it just can't go. And so can't get going. So I passed on adding that. But if there's any deal with Vietnam, that's a name to watch. Um, and then biotech names. So I posted that link, and I was talking about yesterday too, the new FDA head. I think there was concerns that some of these studies that were kind of fast tracked or were on pace with the old administration were going to get nixed with the new administration. That doesn't look to be the case. Not only that, with the new FDA head, it takes so long to get drugs through these studies that it money wise, not and then health wise, right? For patients that might or folks who are afflicted with cures or potential cures by these studies that have to wait unless they do experimental and get approved for that they might not be able to get access to it, right? So there's a lot of good things that can come out from these trials. I used to say when I was doing my rants, right, the biotech sector is one of my favorite because not only can you make money trading them on the call side or what have you, but it's hopefully improving people's lives outside of other shady stuff. But that's rants for other days. So it almost construed somewhat bullish. So you saw the biotech sector rallying a little bit on Monday before the pullback kind of pulled everything down. But you look at some of these mega cap names that have been destroyed, and I keep looking at Biogen. I was looking at it earlier in the year. It's down here multi-year lows, and rightfully so for some reasons, but I don't think it deserves to be all the way down here. So at some point, I mean, again, I'm not trying to get long dated strikes on names because who knows where the market's going to be in the next couple months. But that's a name. I was back looking at Regeneron, but the spreads on Regeneron make it almost unplayable. But that's another name I might look for. And don't be surprised if there's other biotech names. I might just start looking. I was talking about Turns this morning, and Turns kind of, I mean, it's up 3%, but I would like to see more follow through this morning. Again, it's like 350 something million dollars in cash on hand, $230 million market cap. So it trades well below its cash level. And then it has the backdrop of its GLP-1 studies, and its oral data has been good. It's just it's early stage. So it's still got a ways to go. But hey, with the new FDA, maybe things get a little quicker through the processes. But anyway, that's it. Let's have a great day, folks. I'll be back rock and roll.